So I want to talk about the ending part of yesterday's Game Awards and how crazy it was. It almost felt like a fever dream in a sense, because we had Jeff come up and talk about the 10 years of the Game Awards and how it was like an emotional moment, and then he did the review with the final world premiere, like it was something huge coming up. Talk about the new Naughty Dogs game, where it's just pretty much like Horizon Zero Dawn in space with product placement. I don't know. Like I didn't get shit from that. Like um it just feels like Sony and Naughty Dog's like doubling down on that style of game that is so fucking oversaturated. A little tangent here, like throughout the bits that I saw in the Game Awards, like there were so many games announced that was just fucking sci-fi or like futuristic, like in space or high tech shooters, and that's literally like all that it comes around. So I was thinking to myself, people who say, people who don't play games or like aren't really into like the gaming industry or like the just the market of games, like learning about different types of games and just see like whatever's hype come up, or if someone were just to someone who's only touch with games is whatever is announced in big events like this. I can 100% understand why people say gaming is boring now. Like that really like opened my eyes. I'm like, okay, I might have been too harsh on the game bros that only play COD and the EA Sports games. Like I get it. I would, if I didn't know anything else about the game industry, this would also be like a shit show to me. Like 100%, like nothing would pop up new. Like there was the Elden Ring game and Borderlands 4, which I guess were the better announcements in it. But back to it, like the final announcement that was supposed to be something, to blow everything out of the water, a final closer, something that will leave an impact on people when the first thing you see is a Porsche spaceship and a girl like shaving her head bald. Like it's so overdone at this point, and it's crazy because it's not even like something old. It's pretty recent that these types of games have been coming around, but it's just so overdone that it just feels like an old formula at this point, and it's so tiring. Like now seeing product placement in games is so fucking jarring and concerning, and on top of that, like the speech after for the game of the year, Sven came up from Larian Games, the guys who made Baldur Gate and won the game of the year last year, came around to do a speech and talked about how there's a formula to make a game of the year, and how it's very simple, but it's often forgotten because a game that is a game of the year will be something simple and done for fun for the players, for the developers, and treating the game as that and not as something to increase market share, to increase profits, to you know all that business exec side, or like treating game devs as a number on spreadsheets and things like that. And that coming right after that fucking announcement was so strange because it was like it was surreal. It barely felt like it was in um the same event, like the same moment. It felt like they dropped a clip in there or something. And then Astrobot won, and the developers on Astrobot even like shouted out Mario Bros, like the original Mario Bros. The guy said back in '89, he got a gray box with Super Mario Bros, like the NES with the Super Mario Bros. Because Astrobot's also a platformer, so that's kind of the the connection, like what kind of pretty much kick-started the game of the year this year. And it's so strange because it's like the Game Awards are known for being like big, like corporate, like the distilled corporate part of the gaming industry, like in one event. And to have it close off like that was much a much better closer than if they were to close up with that announcement of Intergalactic or whatever the name of the game is. And from there, it's just like you you had like almost a split path, like where game seems to be going with the announcement of Intergalactic, and where we wish games would go on and like follow the path of making games for the sake of making a game, for the sake of being something fun and entertaining to do, to play and to create, instead of formulaic things that we just slap on, and now you slap on advertisements in the mix of it, slap on brands for extra money and revenue share and all that kind of stuff. And with that, I hope, like with the ending, I hope that we'll have more games in the vein of what was said and presented in the Astrobot and like the Game of the Year speech than what came before it. Because if not, then it would be a really it would be a really scary time for games in that sense, where it's like you get a soulful, that I guess that's where the point where I'm getting at. It's something soulless merely done for a way to slap product placement and to distill all that corporate greed coming in. Like it's just a banner for all the way corporations infiltrated games at this point. And right after it, you have this juxtaposition of developers themselves talking about the importance of games to them, the importance of creating a game that you believe in, that you have fun doing, and you have fun playing in it. And it's a lot more soulful than whatever the fuck the corporations are doing. And that's what connects the people with the games. And like in a sense, he's right. It's a simple formula, because people will be drawn to games where they can connect to it. They're not gonna play a game because you have a fucking Porsche spaceship. They want to play a game because, you know, they interact with the characters. They feel attached to the characters, attached to the world. They like the gameplay. They like progressing through the game. They want to learn more about the story, all that kind of stuff. So I hope that in the end we have more devs with more power to keep moving with that final speech and the ethos of that final speech, that idea of carrying games like that, so we can counter and have an alternative to games where it's just going to be, you know, slapped on more and more corporation slop into it. And I bet you that this Intergalactic game is going to be like Zero Dawn, where they're going to try and push it and make it maybe even a sequel, and like remakes and shit like that. Like Last of Us at least was decent, but it really looks like it's gonna follow that that same route, because you're just gonna push it. They're just gonna try and milk it as much as they can, and then once that is done, make a new one and rinse and repeat. So from that is just, and that's what feels like it's gonna be moving on forward for at least these kinds of devs, corporations making games. And I wouldn't be surprised if like GTA 6 does something similar to it, where it's just like you have like the car brands, which is fair because you're driving different cars and shit like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if like the clothing store now has like, you know, known brands putting up their names in their like clothing that would be similar to like clothing that you see in real life with the actual brand names and everything like that, or anything in that vein. So it's really important to keep the soul of games alive, because the the corporate part of it will definitely keep going on. I mean, they have staying power. They're gonna keep going for as long as the gaming industry allows it to. But for the devs that actually care about the games, care about the gaming industry, care about making impactful games. Keep doing that if you can. Work on your game, make your own impact on the world. We've seen Balatro, it was just like one guy doing it, and we've seen the Undertale kind of having a similar thing to it, where it's like these solo dev projects that blow out the water. But again, it's like it's been 10 years almost since Undertale, so it's not like it happens every year every time. It's a lot more of like an exception than a rule, as sad as it is of a reality. But they've shown that it's possible. They've shown that these types of games will be valued even if they're just made by one person. And even the other games could be, you don't have to be simply just one small person. It could be a group of developers, someone that does the games like on their spare time, right? And try to do their own thing from there, because like that's the whole story about like Mega Man 2. If you guys look into it, that's kind of how the game came out, and it's one of the most if not the most beloved entry in the series. Like they were just making a sequel to the first Mega Man that didn't do too well, and in their spare time they kept like developing the idea, and then Mega Man 2 came out, and it was a success, and now Mega Man is what it is nowadays because of it. And yeah, that's it. And we keep moving for that. We gotta keep this alternative side of the industry alive, well and alive, and we'll keep making games for it, so we can still have some soul in the arts, especially in games where a next live action movie or gonna come up, or like a series gonna come up and has nothing to do with the game or whatever. It's just to keep milking. So for the devs, to close it off, for the devs, keep that soul in you, keep that gamer soul in you, keep going with whatever you feel is right for the games, and you feel that it captures the joy that you had when you first started playing games. And for the people who buy games and play games, like dig into it, like search for games that aren't like, step away a bit from the AAAs, especially like Western AAAs, and dig for some indie stuff. Dig for some less like known games that from any genre that you like. I mean, Steam has a bunch of ways that you can find games that like recommend games for you. You can just look up any tag of your genre, and there's a bunch of like the Steam Fests, and when they have sales, you can also just dig through a whole list of games in a certain specific category. So keep doing that. Keep looking for these games and supporting these devs that you believe are also doing what aligns with your idea of what a game should be, or what's your kind of game. Because otherwise we could just easily fall into the trap of having that kind of game, like total corporate slop games, like just take over the whole thing. And before I go, I just want to thank you all guys for listening to this. Just a little rant from it. It's nothing too in depth. If you liked it, if you agree with the idea, if you have anything to say, drop it in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe so I can keep doing more of these things. And thanks for listening.